So at that time we said, well, what shall we do? What's next best? And next best, we had met somebody who knew Lebanon, said, well, next best, it's Lebanon, you've got to go Beirut, that is the dream, and so you have everything, you have the best of the West and you have the best of the Orient. And of course this was true, we're talking 62. I'm an Austrian from Vienna, and I was 150% Viennese, never thought of leaving that place ever until a disaster struck and I got a Fulbright scholarship to go to the States to study. I've been studying architecture in Vienna, and then I thought, well, what shall I do? That was, as I said, in the 50s, and the only place where I could apply my knowledge there, modern architecture and modern technology, was in Switzerland at the time. And in Switzerland it was all fine and I had a good job. But after 3 years or so, more, it was 3.5 years in Switzerland, my wife and I said, well, what shall we do? What's next best? And next best, we had met somebody who knew Lebanon, said, well, next best, it's Lebanon, you've got to go Beirut. So I made contacts there, and I was ready to go as an architect. In fact, I had a proposal to work on a hospital job with Dar al-Handasa. They told me, look, with your background, maybe the American University is interested in your services. And that was the first time I heard that there was an American university there. And the next thing I knew was that I was invited to AUB to come for an interview with Dean Rossen at the time, who was running for, architecture. At that time it was architectural engineering. And, well, it all worked out to I liked the place, he liked me. So, all right, we're gonna go to Lebanon.
So, who is the other architects in Lebanon who work on the same project about the typology of the Lebanese houses?
Monsieur Liger Belair, who actually had already written about it before I did, and he already had established certain these basic types of houses, which are universal and but of course I had the advantage of having this course and the students attend, so I could really go out and collect examples, really measured exactly. And when I had enough of them, I said, now I can put up a study on this. And after a certain time, one discovered that the world had become everywhere the same, You couldn't tell, is this building in Japan or is it in London or whatever. In the 60s then, it started to become an awareness that we have to go back also to the traditions, and we have to respect them, and we cannot just concrete everything. And that started the regional architecture. Now, that regionalism is needed, so we again have a link to our past, and one can identify with a place. And this was the moment when I had come to Lebanon, and the dean, Raymond Rossen at the time, he said, well, we need to have now a course in regional architecture. It's done everywhere. And we have to find out ourselves what is our regional architecture. And I, as I was a newcomer, he said, "Oh, you are going to do this, so this way, and you have open eyes, you know, you don't know anything really yet about Lebanon, and this is very true. When you're not familiar with the place, you see things come fresh. And so he put me on that course, and it was then a summer course, field work, most of it field work. That means with the students going out and looking, well, what is there, and recording, which was not just taking photographs, but drawing, measuring up the buildings. And this we did for, as I said, 6 or 7 summers. We did this, and I had then arrived at a real good collection of examples, and we had to come to conclusions. There's a very strong local tradition of building, and such and such and such types of houses, and what the central hall house with the famous 3 arches and the pyramidal red tile roof was clearly established as the Lebanese house, you know, which you couldn't find anywhere else really. Okay, first we had to collect the material, the evidence, and that was done by the summer course with the students of AUB, architecture students of AUB, and in '74 finally we had enough material to come up with a book, which at that time coincided beautifully with my need to get a PhD, because I stayed in academic work, and so I worked on this then in German. I collected all this material and I organized it and worked the text in German, and my dear wife, she had to type this, you see. And in order to get we are talking in the early 60s, in order to get the PhD, you had to submit 6 copies of that book, 6 copies. And the only way, there were no photocopiers at that time, you know, the only way there was really to type it on this matrix, you know, on the typewriter, and then there were these rotating machines where you could make copies, and then you had to bind it, and when it came to all the photographs, you know, you had to make millions of little black and white photos and stick them into the book, and all this. She was helping me in this. It was really, it was a lot of work.
This period was pretty difficult because he was for a long time in Vienna, and I was alone with the children in Beirut. And at that time, the student strikes broke out, and we were trapped in AUB because of the student strikes, and they were blowing with loudspeakers on the faculty buildings, "We are the champions." I will never forget this song. And so I was there alone, and then when he came back, he had all this material, and he said, "Well, I need you to type this." And we had, of course, an old typewriter, which is still here, staying around somewhere. Those were the old times, the old way, how things were done, yeah. So that was teamwork, let's say. Oh, this was Lebanon. Lebanon was absolutely, it was a golden period. It was a dream country. We knew so many places. Many Lebanese did not know, so we could show them the places. We were going all over the place. We had our secret and our most liked spots where we would go ever and ever again with the kids and do our hiking, and in the meantime just visit all these villages.
Baalbek interested me very much, because there was so relatively little known about it. Yeah, that finally resulted the book, but before this, I had done several, I don't have copies of it here, I had done programs for the Baalbek Festival, but I discovered volumes of this, which are very valuable, huge volumes, tucked away in a reserve at the AUB library, So they have it there, and also the French and the Archaeological Institute of the French, they also have it. But you don't find it, of course, anywhere. And that was then with David Colm, a friend of mine, said, this we have to bring to the public, and on the basis of this material, we were doing several Baalbek programs. This book takes the whole Arab region, so Maghreb and Mashriq, and it shows the similarity in climate and the general situation. So to explain what are the common elements of all this. Let's see, here's Lebanon. This book is it's organized by countries, by Arab countries. So here you have Lebanon, the Lebanese stuff, which of course is also in my Lebanese book. And you have Syria, palaces of Syria, and Egypt you have. 1983, it was after the Israeli invasion, when there was then the great hope and sustained that now the bad times are over, and we can go and really look what have we got as far as the structure is concerned, and what can we draw out of this improvements for the city. And this finally generated a conference, an international conference in 1983 under the heading of Beirut of Tomorrow. And there a number of more international architects and town planners came under the auspices of then Minister of Public Works Choueiry, who was of course part of it, and that was a very fruitful gathering, because it really set certain principles, of which later Solidaire then actually was able to realize most of those principles. After all, I spent probably the longest time of my life I spent in Lebanon, 25 years. So here you have Mukhtar, and you have a view along the coast here. We explored the whole country, not just for the architecture, but of course for the natural sites. And there was one of the principal ones is the Grufer, the Bala, the Grufer Bala.
In '86, actually, when the war was still going on and we kind of had enough of it, we said, well, he can go on a sabbatical. So we were looking around all over the place and trying to find a place where we could go. And finally, Kenya materialized, which was our, it was our dream to go to an African country, and it was a very bad pay, but still we made it, we wanted to do it. Okay, so we were in Kenya from 87 till 90.
Out in the mountains, in those villages, nothing much had changed. Architecture-wise, of course, I mean, I said a long time ago that in Beirut itself, I said it's a lost cause. I regret a lot about Junior, that it had been so overbuilt, although some along the coast is somehow miraculously preserved a line of houses, you see.
But at that time, it was absolutely a dream country for us.
The cedars of Lebanon are still there, strong and permanent. And that's the way this country wants to be. I think they'll make it.